if you have ever tuned in to my live streams or follow me on other channels, I preach about exfoliators all the time. Exfoliating, I think, is probably my favorite step of a routine. And I think if it's not exfoliating, it's probably toning, because toning is sort of just like another mechanism for exfoliating in my eyes. As I mentioned at the beginning of this, I'm not a beauty influencer. So if I'm not using the right verbiage, don't quote me. But I do, like, I love a good exfoliator, especially in the summer. I live in New York. I'm based in Brooklyn. I feel like when I'm walking around the city and just living in the city overall, my pores, and I have like somewhat big pores. I used to hate it on myself. I also am breaking out a little bit. So we're all humans here. We all have breakouts. We all have blemishes. It's what makes us beautiful. I love a good exfoliator because I feel like it's really what gets under my skin and like cleans out that dirt. I don't use an exfoliator every day. And I will say, like, I exfoliate sort of every other day. But I love this exfoliator. So this is the ElaSpa, and this is the Gentle Bamboo Exfoliator. I love the texture of this. So I'm going to show you what it looks like. It sort of looks like a cream. So I use this like once a week. But I also use the Dermalogica microfoliant, which is more of like a powder that activates when you add some water to it. So this one is more of like a cream. And I love it because it comes out like a lotion, but then once you start rubbing it in, it actually, like, you start feeling those beads and it starts exfoliating. So I love this, especially because I feel like when I use my other like drier exfoliator, it really, like, it dries out my skin sometimes a little bit too much, or it strips my skin too much, which I don't want, especially when I'm in the sun and like I feel like my skin is already dry a little bit. It also smells divine. It's almost like a nostalgic smell, and I am getting almost hints of like, I don't want to, I'm like almost hesitant to say this because I feel like it might turn people away, but it's not in a way that turns you off because I don't like licorice or the smell of licorice. But it's like I can understand why people like licorice based on the smell. It's like a floral fresh with like a licorice undertone smell to it. It's so good. So I love this as like a gentle exfoliator. This is not one that I'm going to use all the time. Also when I think that this might be one that I'll use more frequently in the winter just because my skin is drier. But this one is amazing. Sorry, my lighting. But I really love the texture of it. I love how it's like creamy when you first apply it, and then once you start like rubbing it in, it starts activating and you start feeling those little tiny beads, which I think is just the most satisfying thing in an exfoliator. So this one comes down to $40 from $48 if you shop during my live stream, which I think is a great deal. As you probably saw, like, I literally use a tiny, tiny bit, like probably a pea-sized amount of it. And I will say, like, I go through skincare products a lot slower than a lot of people because I use a tiny bit of product. And I feel like it works. It just works for me. So I will probably bet that this will last me 6 to 8 months. I always talk about the cost per wear or the cost per use, which brings this down to, like, I can't do math. I'm not going to do it on here for you guys, but if you think about the cost per use, that's a very low cost per use. So yeah, I love this one. I definitely recommend, like, if you have skin like me that needs to be exfoliated a little bit more vigorously, I would recommend using this like once per week in the summer, maybe twice per week or 3 times per week in the winter when your skin is a little bit drier. I have a combination skin, but I love this one, and it smells so good. So very refreshing. Okay. The next thing is this. Oop, did that work?